Hi, I'm Gareth Green. Well, in 1985, Whitney Houston released her cover of the song Saving All My Love for You. And it was an instant hit, did absolute wonders right across the world and was one of her most successful US hits, of course. And we all know that Whitney's got a very special voice and a personality, and there are huge things that are going to make this song carry for a singer like that. But in this video, I'm going to focus on the harmony of this song, just to work out what is it that gives the harmony a particular warmth that really adds to the words and to the melodic line. So, without further ado, let's just remind ourselves how this main melody unfolds. Okay, so there's the main opening tune, isn't it? But you can hear immediately that while the melody is very memorable, particularly when we associate it with the words, we've got some really rich harmony going on. Now, does this set this apart from many other songs? I actually believe it does. Many songs have got great melodies, they've got great vocals, they've got fantastic players in the thing. But sometimes the harmonic language is a little bit boring, if we're honest, or you're just going around the same 3 or 4 chords all the way through the song. But when you really get to the bottom of what's going on here, it really is a rich harmonic language. So let's unpack it and see what's happening. Mainly, the warmth is achieved through extended chords. So how do you take your basic chord and extend it? Well, if anybody's unclear about that, let's just think about that for a moment. And I'll go into C major just to keep things nice and simple. But if we're in C major and we take the tonic chord, the chord of C major, well, the notes are C, E, and G. And any of these triad is going to have a root, a third, and a fifth. So your bottom note, the note that's 3 above it, and the note that's 5 above it. But it's also true that any of these chords can be extended. And when we extend a chord, we're just bolting on thirds on top of the chord. So let's take this C major chord and extend it. So I've got a root, a third, and a fifth in the basic chord. Go up another third. I've now added a 7th above the root. So I've now got a 7th chord. Go up another third. I've got a 9th. Go up another third, I've got an 11th. Go up another third, I've got a 13th. And if I go up another third to what would be the 15th, that's when I get back to the note that we started on at the bottom of the chord. So in reality, we're not going to extend a chord beyond 13. But that's the principle of extended chords. So if we look at the first chord in this one, we've got this A major 7th. So we're in the key of A major. A major chord then is A, C sharp, E. By adding the 7th, in this song, we're taking in the melody, because not only are we using an extended chord at the beginning, but the extended note, the 7th, is actually in the melody. So there's a huge difference. Say this melody had started, instead of going A, G sharp, say it had started with 2 A's. Well, you could have just banged down a chord of A then. Okay, doesn't sound awful, does it? But what warms it up is the fact that we're not just using an A major chord, we're using an A major 7, and then we put the 7th in the melody. So listen to that plain A major start again. And now listen to it with a 7th in. And suddenly it's transformed, isn't it? Melodically, it goes somewhere instead of just repeating the first note. But that harmony has a transforming impact on the warmth of the song. Now, having started off with that 7th, then the songwriters are thinking, yeah, okay, well, we started with an extended chord. We don't often start a song on an extended chord, but here we are doing exactly that. They're then thinking, well, we don't want then just to go to something a bit too plain, like we could have gone to a chord of E or something. Doesn't sound wrong, but sounds a bit plain after that A major 7. So what do the songwriters decide to do? They go for an F sharp minor 7. Okay, so in the key of A major, the F sharp minor chord is chord 6, built on the 6th degree of the scale. So we've gone from a 1/7 to a 6/7. And again, by adding on the 7th to that chord, F sharp, A, C sharp, we get E. And again, notice that the 7th is actually a melody note. It's in the tune. So we've had a 7th in the tune there, and then we get another one here. So it's not just in the chord, it's also in the melody. And you notice the melody was G sharp at the beginning of this bar, this measure, and now it's come down to E. So it's gone down a third, and the chord has gone down a third from A to F sharp. So it's parallel with the chords and the melody. So, great start. A major 7, F minor 7. And you also feel that, well, we had a major chord, now we've got a minor chord. So that's kind of nice balance of the tonality within the key. Then, well, we've got to go a step further. So where are we going to go when we come down to the next bar? Well, we've got B minor 9. So it's a further extension. Let's have a think about what B minor 9 must be. Well, B minor is chord 2 in the key of A major. It's built on the 2nd degree of the scale. So B minor is B, D, F sharp. The 7th will be A. The 9th is C sharp. So you see it's an extra extension. We've had 2 7th chords. Now we've got a 9th chord. And notice once again, the 9th is the melody note. And I think this is one of the things that makes this song really work, because you get this warmth of the harmony, but the extended notes coming in the melody. Okay, so what have we got then? So from the beginning, A major 7, F sharp minor 7, and then we've got B minor 9. So at the sort of point that we are in this first phrase, we get the warmest chord as the 3rd of 4 chords. You feel that? At the kind of A major 7, and then the F sharp minor 7, and then the warmest chord comes here, and then it kind of relaxes at the end of the phrase. But even there, when we come to this point, we don't have the songwriters doing something a little bit boring. Because can you imagine what would have happened if you'd had your B minor 9 chord and then you'd have said, okay, well, we're coming to the end of the first phrase and it's A, so we just have an A major chord. Lots of people would have done that. If you heard it on its own away from this song, it wouldn't offend you. But it kind of sounds like, well, plain and the end of something. However, what happens, we get this chord where we have a D chord. So the D chord is D, F sharp, A, but it's a slash chord. We've got E in the bass. Now what's interesting about that is that E doesn't belong to the D major chord, does it? But in a funny sort of way, if you think about it this way, the whole D major chord could be seen as an extension of the E major chord. Oh, what am I on about here? Well, look, if we get E in the bass and then we build an E chord, we get G sharp B. Then if I go on to the 7th, I get D. Then if I go on to the 9th, I get F sharp, and the 11th, I get A. So do you see what's happening there? The 7th, the 9th, and the 11th actually spells out a D chord, and we're just putting that over the E. So we're hearing a D chord, we're hearing E in the bass, which is the dominant note of the key, and the dominant often pulls us back to the tonic note, the first degree of the scale, which is exactly what's going to happen in the next bar. But we've also got this sense of, actually, is this a further extension of an E chord that's taking us to go to 7, 9, 11? So in which case we've had a 7th chord, a 7th chord, a 9th chord, an 11th chord at the end of the phrase. Interesting. Okay, so that's what's kind of going on at the beginning, up to that point. Now, where are we going next? Well, then the melody kind of obviously repeats. And what are we doing with our chords this time? Well, A major 7 again, F sharp minor 7 again, B minor 9 again. So this is all kind of reinforcing what we've done. And then the D/E thing. But this time, melodically, instead of sitting still, we move on. Here we had a long note, now we're going to move on. So you've got your first short phrase, it's then repeated, and now we're moving on. So, okay, well, where are we going next? Let's see what happens in the design of the harmony after that. So when we come down here, we've got F sharp minor 7. Okay, well, that's a chord that we first used back there. So some of these chords are getting familiar. This time, interestingly, we haven't got the extended note in the melody. We're just leaving the extended note, that 7th, in the harmony. And then we have a very interesting situation here where we have a B major chord with this F sharp in the bass. So in other words, it's a B major chord in second inversion. Now, we don't often kind of do second inversions unless we're careful about how we resolve them. There are kind of rules of engagement about that we don't need to worry too much about at the moment. But this is a slightly unconventional use of a second inversion chord. But what makes it work? We have F sharp in the bass because of the F sharp minor 7. Then we have F sharp in the bass, then we have F sharp in the bass again for F sharp minor 7, and then we have F sharp in the bass because we're repeating that B/F sharp. So in other words, we're now getting a pedal note, a pedal point in the bass of F sharp, and we're alternating F sharp minor 7 with B major. It's an interesting kind of alternation. It's not entirely conventional. If it was F sharp major 7 going to B, that's much more conventional. It's going from a dominant chord to a tonic chord in B. So what's happening here, we're not getting that F sharp major 7, we're getting F sharp minor 7 and then the B major over the F sharp. But it doesn't kind of sound fully resolved because it's in second inversion. So this alternation is quite an intriguing thing to do after our initial chord pattern that comes twice. So from going from bar 6, measure 6, we've got this. And then you think, well, where's it going to go from here? Well, then we come back to what we think is going to be a familiar chord zone, if you like, because then we come to an A major chord. Notice this is the first time we just get a straight chord without anything funny going on. It's not a slash chord, it's not an extended chord, it's just a plain A major chord, but not completely removed from the A major 7 we had at the beginning. You know, it's just that without the extension. And then we have the F sharp minor 7 that we've been using before. So this has got some familiarity about it if I start from here. And then F sharp minor 7 again. And of course, the melody is interesting, partly for the melodic design, but also partly because we're in 12/8 time and suddenly we get these duplets. So it just kind of disturbs the sense of how the 12/8 meter works temporally. So that's another kind of subtle touch that's going on top of it. Why does it happen here in the song? Well, it partly reflects what's happening in the words, but it's interesting that you get an a kind of shift in the rhythmic design at the point in the song where you have the plainest chord. So we take the emphasis off the harmony for a moment and we put it into the rhythm before we reclaim it in the harmony. I think it's quite a sort of clever little trick, isn't it? Okay, so when we get here, we're starting here, we're thinking sort of a little bit familiar, even though the melody is not the same as the beginning. This A, F sharp minor 7 relationship exists again. And then we think, okay, well, maybe it's going to go to a B minor 9 because we did that before, didn't we? But it doesn't do that. We get the F sharp minor 7. And then we're kind of taken a bit by surprise now, because now we're going to have a G sharp minor 7, which is an interesting chord to use, isn't it? Because actually, you know, what's that about? It's not actually strictly a chord in the key of A, is it? Because it's got a D sharp in it. You've got G sharp B, D sharp. If it was really in the key of A, it would be a G sharp diminished. So that D sharp gives us a bit of a lift, doesn't it? You can feel that, can't you? And it's also just a slight preparation for what's coming next, because then we get C sharp 7. So what on earth is that doing there? Because that really feels like it should be a dominant 7th in F sharp minor or F sharp major. I think F sharp minor in this case, because you've got an A natural in the melody there. So you're thinking that's going to go to F sharp minor again, or maybe back to that F sharp minor 7 that we've had before. That would put us back on familiar territory. Actually, what happens? We get the G sharp minor 7, and then we get the C sharp 7, and then we go to a D major 7. Oh, we're not really expecting that, are we? But it is pulling us back into the original key when we get down here, because that is chord 4, 7 in the key of A major. So we're sort of coming back home. And then the melody is coming down. We're going C sharp, B, A, and the chords are coming down by step with it. D, C sharp, minor 7, and then B, minor 7. It's interesting that actually that interval between the bottom and the top, 7th. So it's kind of, when you play that rather boldly, it's kind of quite dissonant, isn't it? But again, what's happening? The extended note is in the melody. That C sharp is the 7th of the D7. The B is the 7th of the C minor 7. The A is the 7th of the B minor 7. But you have this kind of sliding down the wall impact of the chord progression, which is rather beautiful, isn't it? And then we're looking for some kind of cadence at the end of this. It's an interesting one, because the perfect cadence, going 5 to 1, is the strongest thing, wouldn't it? So you think the melody writer might have done something like, that would be a more standard way of doing things. Actually, clever little touch here. Because now we're getting this D/E chord again. You remember the one we had back there? It's come back. But in order to get a dominant into the bass, you can feel this dominant that's going to go to the tonic. That's really reinforcing that cadence. But there's a real tension on the first of those cadence chords, because you've got this D/E chord, which of course is doing exactly what we said about this back here, that you've got the dominant in the bass with the D chord, but there's also this sense of it being an E extension chord, isn't it? And then we're going on to not just an A chord, which I think many people would have been tempted to put in there, but we go on to the A major 7 chord again. So I'm hoping, I've not discussed the melody particularly here, because there are many interesting things we could say about that. I've said a little bit about the rhythm, and there's more we could say about that, and the lilting nature of the 12/8 rhythm and the tied notes, and how that really helps to kind of paint the text. But I'm really trying to focus on this harmonic aspect. What's slightly unusual about it? What's particularly sophisticated about it? what about it really makes the song work with the extensions and the slash chords, and what happens in the melody in relation to the harmony, particularly when these extended notes are being used in the melody. What a great song. So there we are, Saving All My Love for You, a song that wasn't originally written for Whitney, but a song that really did a lot to add to her fame and success. And just a little insight into how that harmonic magic really works in that song. Well, if you've enjoyed this video, do have a look on our website at www.mmcourses.co.uk. And if you click on courses on the homepage, it will take you to our whole array of online courses, all designed to empower the all-round musician. So if you want to know more about theory, more about harmony, more about how to analyze something, what we can learn by analyzing music in the kind of way that we've just been talking about, that's all there. Orchestration, writing counterpoint, you name it, we've got heaps of stuff out there. So have a look there and see if there's anything that would be particularly useful to you. And then back on the homepage, you might want to click on Maestros, which will tell you all about our fantastic global community of musicians, very exciting groups that we've now got. And you'll find that there are 3 levels of maestros, nothing to do with ability. Anybody can come on at any level of ability whatsoever. Level 1 comes with emojis and other fun things, and it's a kind of support level for the channel. When you move on to level 2, well, there are greater perks, including access to our monthly live streams, where we can go into more detail in the kind of thing that we've been looking at in this video. And I do a sort of solid hour of teaching, and we look at composers and their music and see what there is to learn, and also trying to be responsive to requests from members. So if there's something you really want to know about, there's a piece you really want to look at, there's something you want to understand about music, fire away and I'll address any questions, concerns that you have as part of that live stream. And then for the level 3 members, there's an opportunity in a separate live stream each month to submit your own work. Compositions of your own, arrangements, harmony exercises, recordings of yourself playing, whatever it is you want to hand in, and we share that in the group, and I give you a kind of one-to-one evaluative feedback, which people seem to find useful, which is great. And also we learn from each other. And all the way through both of these live streams, we've got live chat running, so you can ask further questions, make comments, and it just becomes much more interactive. And it's a very friendly group of people, and some lovely friendships forming, and people finding that they're really enjoying the mutual support, because the musical journey can be quite a lonely trail, can't it? So it's a great way of connecting people from all around the world. Anyway, it's all there. Have a look and see what might be of appeal to you.